You can study Shakespeare and be quite elite. Now you can charm the critics and have nothing to eat. Just slip on a banana peel. This world is at your feet. Sorry, I am on a bit of a caffeine high right now. Exam study schedules do tend to mess around with your brain. Yesterday, I had 2 double shots espresso. Actually, 3 double shots of espressos, and for the entire day, it's just me on drugs. Literally on drugs. William Shakespeare. One of the greatest writers ever. Not just because everyone have read Shakespeare. Some people that are quite elite have read Shakespeare. It's just different writers click with different people. If I go survey 10 people, 9 of them are gonna hate Shakespeare because they've done Macbeth in 10th grade and they've hated it ever since, which is not a very good way to look at Shakespeare. So today, briefly, let's talk about how I came to love Shakespeare and how I adapted myself to his sort of rhymey verse using the high from this caffeine high. So mind you, I didn't take another double espresso. This caffeine was from tea. So like anyone else, I've hated Shakespeare for a better part of my English learning career of, going through primary school and not really reading any Shakespeare and entering high school and not read any Shakespeare. But the first time when I encountered Shakespeare was after reading something else, and I started to realize, hey, this Shakespeare fella might be interesting. My school then finished reading Oedipus Rex, the play. It was called the Theban Plays. It's 3 different plays from Oedipus Rex all the way to Antigone. It was one of the most beautiful things I've ever read. My friend texted me after I've read the entire thing, basically in one sitting. These plays are very short. They're pretty hard to read, but being sort of the English nerd that I kind of was, I finished reading the entire thing in about 2 days. So after reading that play, my brain was thinking verses. So my friend sent over this text asking me if I want to hang out with him, go grab food or whatever, and I just didn't want to do it. So I texted him back. I don't know what came to me, but I wrote in verse, and I wrote in this very sort of ancient Greek poetry style, and then my friend sent over 3 dots and never talked to me for the rest of the week. I've always had this obsession with verses. I've always had an obsession with the English language. Part of the reason why I love stuff like James Joyce, Marcel Proust, and more recently Shakespeare isn't because they have compelling stories. Some of these books have sloppy plot lines. Some of these books don't even have plot lines. Finnegan's Wake. But I think the main thing that drew me towards that stuff, that drew me towards these sort of obscure avant-garde writers, is how the proses flowed, how the prose reflected a part of human nature in which is innate in every one of us. So thereby, having read authors like Proust, having read authors like James Joyce, one of the toughest guys to read, but the rewards are, oh my god. And having read some of the works of Ernest Hemingway, just the other day, I came back to Shakespeare. I've read Julius Caesar the play at a Shakespeare convention. It was like a 2 days tournament thing. You have to read Julius Caesar to play and then write your own thing up as a response. It was very, very mentally engaging. So my first exposure to Shakespeare, proper exposure to Shakespeare, was at the convention. So after the convention, I didn't think about Shakespeare for a little while. I went off reading Joyce, reading Proust, and I came back to Shakespeare just recently, and this is where everything just dawned on me. Everything made sense. Shakespeare is amazing. So I went to the bookstore, I grabbed Hamlet, and I just started to read it. Having dug through Joyce and having dug through Proust, Shakespeare doesn't feel like a walk in the park, but after you've read so much obscure shit, it just sort of occurs to you that Shakespeare is actually not that hard to read compared to some of these other writers out there. Oh my god, you get through 1 page of Finnegan's Wake, you're gonna cry mama. But coming back to Shakespeare, the one thing that I've taken away, the one true thing that you have to take away if you want to properly enjoy Shakespeare, is that it's not about studying Shakespeare. Take this away from you. If you take away one thing from this video, it's not about studying Shakespeare. You can study Shakespeare and be quite elite, but we're here not trying to be elites. We're trying to enjoy literature. We're trying to tease out the great lessons. We're trying to enjoy the tragedy, the comedy, the historical plays, Henry V, We're trying to enjoy all of that stuff. We're trying to enjoy the enduring tragedies, the supernatural from Macbeth, the to be or not to be of Hamlet. That stuff is the stuff that you have to read for the experience. Proses are like music. You know, a symphony, you don't go to a symphony unless you're some musician, like a composer or something. You don't go to symphonies and remember every one of the notes of that symphony. You have a brief memory of how the music sounds like, but mostly the thing gives you a immediate emotion in a moment, then it passes by, and you sort of wonder what the hell was that, without remembering much of what the hell that was. Then you come out of the musical theater, and you think to yourself, that was extraordinary, and you buy the musical record, and you listen to it again, and this time you might remember some lines, but the first time when you listen to a symphony, it just passes through you and leave you in a state of awe. Same with Shakespeare. Don't go into Shakespeare thinking, I don't understand. Shakespeare is a playwright. He's not a novelist, despite the fact that carry sort of a depth of philosophical depth. But the main purpose of a Shakespearean play is to create a sense of musical whimsy with his proses, and at the same time deliver a powerful performance. It's here to shock, not here for you to analyze like a novel. So when you tackle Shakespeare, when you read Shakespeare, I want you to endure the tragedy. I want you just to dive head in. Keep reading even if you don't understand. And you can dig through Hamlet in 5 hours. And that's like 3 days. You can read through Hamlet in 3 days and just experience the pure intensity. Don't try to remember anything. Don't try to be quite elite. By quoting Shakespeare, quoting comes much later. You have to first fall in love with Shakespeare. And then sort of let the music of his lines and proses really get to the best of yourself, and then you can read it again, and then you can do analysis, and then you can really be quite elite quoting Shakespeare. I feel like this is Spider, but nevertheless, that's all that you have to take away from this video. The reason why I love Shakespeare, the one crucial thing that I've learned from digging through the 2 Shakespeares that I'm reading right now, Macbeth and Hamlet, it's just, these are high quality pieces of work, and you can bask in a security that they are going to be dramatic, they are going to be epic. They grip you, they grip me like none of the books did grip me. Shakespeare's famous plays, you can make sense of it. It's the most readable thing ever. If you have the right mindset, tackle it like theater. Don't tackle it as a novel that you want to analyze the shit out of. So nevertheless, drunken talk, not really drunk, but on drugs, on caffeine. Nightly talk. See you guys next time. And that spider's probably going to bite me. And don't be quite elite when trying to study Shakespeare.